Hello my friends and welcome back to the rabbit hole. In today's video I am ranking all of the foundations that I tried that were released in 2019. Now obviously this video is going to be only my own opinions, but I am going to try my darned hardest to rank these foundations by their quality as opposed to my own personal preferences. You know, I'll have a tinted moisturizer next to a full coverage foundation if both of them are delivering on claims. But what's going to make me rank a foundation highest is if to me it really stands out in this vast sea of foundations that are on the market. Unlike my ranking palettes video, which I feel was a lot more about my own personal preferences, for this video I am going to include products that were sent to me because again the goal is, what were foundations that really stood out. And in addition to that, I'm going to throw out of this video any foundations that caused me to have an allergic reaction. I don't feel like it would be fair for me to judge them. Obviously I want to put those last. But that's not fair for anybody who doesn't have my allergy. So we're just not going to talk about those products. Instead, we're going to talk about what I was able to use and test and what I thought really stood out. Let's go ahead and start ranking. I'm going to do this one best to worst if you only want to stay for a little bit of time and find out what I think were absolutely the best foundations. Let's get into it. So number one on my list, the foundation that stands out to me the most of all the foundations that I tried from 2019. I'm so predictable, I know some of you know it, but yes, indeed, it is the Shiseido Synchro Skin Self-Refreshing Foundation. What this does on any kind of more mature skin is just incredible. So whether you have very fine lines around your eyes, by the way, that's normal, but if you do have that, this is a foundation that sits beautifully on that. Any kind of expression lines, any kind of texture, it just kind of erases them. Now, it does have a con, and I've not wrapped my brain around why, but it doesn't look particularly good over actual acne. Again, this is counterintuitive, because if it looks good over lines, why not acne, right? But again, as far as, what stands out to me, I've never had a foundation kind of just erase expression lines the way that this one does. The shade range is absolutely incredible. I love that I was actually able to get a light olive foundation from them. It's just an incredible foundation. It still has an SPF in it, an SPF of 30, and it's for some reason that is the only chemical filter that I'm able to use on my skin. And because it is a chemical filter, you don't get any kind of that white flashback that you do with physical filters. So just such a phenomenal foundation all the way around. Absolutely stands out to me. Next on my list, and the one I'm wearing today, is the Smashbox Studio Skin Full Coverage 24-Hour Foundation. This is one of the most full coverage foundations that I've ever tried. However, it actually looks beautiful on the skin. A lot of really, really high pigment foundations do this amazing thing of sinking into lines, or maybe it's that they run away from lines. Whatever it is, it just really draws attention to them. And this one somehow doesn't. In all fairness, I think it's really important to say that with this being full coverage, it still looks like foundation. If you get close enough to somebody wearing this, it's going to look like foundation on. I don't really know how to describe that. It just looks like foundation. Does that make sense? But I don't think a full coverage foundation is ever able to overcome this. If it ever did, if you ever had a full coverage foundation that looked like skin, it would break the internet. Sorry, James Charles. Sorry. It'd be the foundation. So please know that this is not going to be for everybody. If you want something that's more skin-like, the Shiseido for sure. But if you really like a lot of coverage and you still want a foundation that is going to sit as beautifully as possible on your skin, I just don't think I have a better recommendation than this. And the way it looks from a distance is gorgeous. Oh, it looks so good from afar. You get close enough, it's like, oh, that's foundation. But beautiful foundation regardless. I think it really is the best full coverage foundation that I've ever tried. Oh, and it's Smashbox, so of course they have a fantastic shade range. Smashbox has always had a really good shade range, so you are certain to find a foundation that works for you. They have an olive shade for me. Really great foundation. Oh, my top 3 foundations all have an olive shade. Ooh, personal preference might be playing into this in spite of me trying really hard not to. Anyway, Number 3 on my list is the Stay Naked Weightless Foundation by Urban Decay. I really didn't think this was going to rank that high on my list. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't love this, and I'm not sure why, because I really do. I think it's one of the best medium to full coverage foundations that was released in 2019. You know, the common cons with foundation, especially around the medium range where you're kind of hoping that they look a little more skin-like, some of the common complaints would be foundation separating, not lasting all day, sinking into lines, and this does none of that. It is a very reliable foundation. I do have a more dry skin type, so I'd heard that this would not be as good of a foundation for me, but that is not the case for me at all. It is gorgeous, it is skin-like, fantastic shade range with Urban Decay. Definitely my number 3. I'm really glad I tried this in spite of hearing mixed reviews. You know, if you're ever not sure on a foundation and you hear mixed reviews, sample it. Next on my list is going to be one that I received in PR, and that is the Pure 4-in-1 Love Your Selfie Foundation. You guys, this is such a good foundation. Do you guys remember the drama around this release? I feel like, gosh, brands can't win. They can't win. There are 100 shades of this. You are pretty darn sure to find a good match for you in their shade range. The one that I wear is LG6, which in spite of me having a slight olive tone to my skin, it still works beautifully. It wears beautifully. It is a more medium to full coverage, a little more full coverage than that Urban Decay one, and I do find that this one starts to look like foundation on the skin, but it doesn't fade, it doesn't crease. You know, again, none of the negatives with this foundation, just gorgeous all day wear with that one con of if you get really close, oh, she's wearing foundation. Great foundation, definitely one to check out if you're really having a hard time finding a perfect match. Next on my list is one where I've had certain feelings toward the brand that are not positive at certain points in my life, but I'd be lying if I didn't rank this guy higher. It deserves it, and that is the Wet n Wild Photo Focus Stick Foundation. Now, the one con with this is I do think that it might not work as well on more oily skin. That's a very surprising thing for me to say because stick foundations typically have not worked as well on dry skin, but this one is definitely more creamy. That makes me love it. The fact that this foundation is $6.50 just absolutely blows my mind. I don't know how they did it. You know, again, I have complicated feelings towards Wet n Wild, but this is a winner. We'll go ahead and rank around here one that I did return, and that's going to be the Bare Minerals complexion stick. I didn't return that because that's not a good foundation. I returned it because I had just bought this, and it was actually really painful for me to try a stick foundation that, to be honest with you, I liked a little less than this and was that much more expensive. So yeah, that was a good foundation, but the problem you're going to run into with any foundation stick, keep in mind how little product you get. With this, you get 0.42 ounces. You're not going to get much higher than that with a stick foundation. They're always smaller than your 1 ounce standard foundations. You're gonna run out of it pretty quickly. So for me personally, I don't want to invest in stick foundations going forward because I go through them way too fast. So I'm really happy I tried this. I'm really happy that I didn't hate Wet n Wild at the time I bought this. One really big con, how have I not said this yet? This one doesn't last all day. I would say that this lasts probably maybe 8 hours on my dry skin and then it kind of disappears. That's surprising to me, but it makes it good for what it is. A stick foundation to me is something that you can put on really fast if you need to be somewhere, whereas if you are planning something much longer, yeah, I wouldn't go with most stick foundations. There's a few exceptions. Next is going to be the Uma Stay Woke foundation. I got to admit how darn good this foundation is, even if it is pretty different. Oh, by the way, I did buy it in my correct shade. If you saw my Uma foundation review, these are definitely foundations where I would find your match in store. I didn't expect to be as light in their shade range as I am, for example. So the one that matches me the best is Fairlady T1N. What's different about this foundation is that it almost has more of a serum foundation consistency. It's very, very lightweight. But still surprisingly high coverage, definitely medium to full coverage, and yet it feels like nothing on the skin. That really stands out to me. I think that's very hard to do. It is easy to make a foundation feel light when it is a light coverage. It is difficult when it is full coverage. There are some things you may not love about this foundation, including fragrance and alcohol, things to know if you're more into the skincare side of things, which is all greatly ironic because there is a lot of skincare ingredients in this formula as well. But strictly judging it from a foundation perspective, it is a very good and again very different foundation. Then I'm going to give it to Florence by Mills, Like a Light Skin Tint. You know, I know a lot of people have not loved this, but I really do. I think this is such a good, very, very, very light coverage foundation. It really just gives your skin a glow. It does have a lot of very nice skincare ingredients in it as well. This is something that I said in my Florence by Mills video, but I will say it again. I think the brand seems to be marketed more towards younger people, but do not let that deter you if you are closer to my age. I very much think that if you have good skin, if you've been taking care of it, if you are happy with your skincare routine, and you just kind of want to, you know, look a little more glowy, this is such a great product to try. The shade range on this is limited, but keep in mind that it is a skin tint, so you can probably buy several different shades and have them match you well. So unlike with some of these full coverage foundations where you really gotta nail that exact match, you don't have to as much with this. Next up on my list, I'm gonna say the Tarte Found Sealer. This is not a bad product, but it's a little, I find the name misleading. I also kind of cringe at the name. Is it just me? I don't love the name. But to me, something called Found Sealer would be a cross between a foundation and a concealer, and I don't think that's what this is. I do think this is a nice light medium foundation with a little bit of physical sunscreen in it. There's some pros and cons there. Now that you've added in physical sunscreen, you might have to worry about a white cast. If you try to build this up, you're going to see that white cast. If you're happy with light medium coverage, it's not bad. It does sit on the skin pretty well, especially considering that it does have those physical filters. Those can be tricky to incorporate into a foundation, it seems to me. So it does sit on the skin nicely. It's nice that it does have some sunscreen, although I'd like to see higher than SPF 20. To me, I feel like when you start talking about SPF 15, 20, it's kind of like, why bother? Put nothing in and let me layer it with another sunscreen, or put SPF 50 in, right? Even then, you should never trust a foundation, even at SPF 50, even at SPF 100, you should never trust it because you're not putting it on thickly enough to hit that SPF. So it's just kind of, I guess it's kind of an okay foundation. It's not bad, it's not great, but again, it does sit on the skin nicely, I will give it that. However, there are a lot of light to medium coverage foundations that sit on the skin nicely, so I guess in terms of everything, it didn't stand out to me the way that some of my higher picks did. I'm gonna rank the Kevyn Aucoin Foundation Balm next. The reality is that I love this foundation, but I've seen all the negative reviews about this, and I'm not even really surprised because the problem with this foundation is that it is tricky. Just so you guys know, I was sent this in PR like kind of a lot of people here on YouTube. And the first time that I opened it, you know, it came with this little brush. I don't even know where the brush is. That seemed like a horrible idea to me. That's a very full coverage brush. This looked like a very full coverage foundation. So I never actually used it, but I did try a paddle brush, and it gave me a really, really thick end look, just kind of cakey. You know, it looked like an old school full coverage foundation. We have moved so far past that. We now have these very light feeling full coverage foundations. We don't need that anymore. However, I realized that this is actually a beautiful balm if you use a stippling brush. See, Kevyn Aucoin, this is totally where you missed out. Rather than have that brush in there, you should have had a stippling brush because that would have been a whole chance to introduce the beauty of the art of stippling your foundation on. And my goodness, this is my favorite foundation for stippling. So stippling is a technique where you dab on these little well, not circles, but dots of foundation all over your face. The dots connect and you get, you know, an almost pixelated end version where you look airbrushed. It's so beautiful if you wear it that way. If you have this foundation and you hate it, please try stippling. So for as much as I love this, just because of how difficult it can be, I gotta rank it lower. But again, honestly, I really and truly love this, but you have to trust me on that application. When you have something in a creamy balm type of format, you can't use it the same way that you use other foundations because of every ingredient in there that is holding it together. But if you baby it, it's one of the most gorgeous foundations on the skin. You need so little. I'm going to start storing this in my refrigerator because I don't think I'll ever run out. I don't think I'll ever run out of this. I want it to last because of how much I love it. I've said enough about this. We can move on. But yeah, I love it. I got to rank it lower than I'd like. Next on my list, I'm going to rank the NYX Born to Glow foundation, and just so you know, this is another one that I actually really do like the look of. It's a very gorgeous, glowy, light to medium to buildable foundation. It is $10 for this, but this is where I kind of run into problems with it. This oxidizes on me. It consistently goes really orange. I don't know if this is just me because I seem to not have the same oxidation effects as other people. Fenty doesn't oxidize on me, for example. Charlotte Tilbury does, and so does this. It turns orange every time. At this point, I'm on my third foundation shade of this because I keep wanting it to work because the end look is beautiful. I've heard a lot of people say that this is a dupe for the Anastasia Glowy foundation, which I didn't buy it because I didn't need it. But I believe that because it really looks like a high-end foundation on the skin. It is gorgeous, it is glowy, it is easy to work with, but it is so orange on me and it is so hard for me to overcome that to give a more fair review. So if your skin is not tremendously finicky, yes, I totally think this is worth trying. I definitely would go in store and try to find the right match. Keep this on your skin a bit just in case you have the same problem with oxidation that I have. If you don't, it's a gorgeous foundation. The Pacifica Alight foundation. You can tell I've loved this, but I'm going to rank it kind of low. And the reason for this is because the texture of it could be a lot better, but it's not the lowest because it could also be worse. So one really nice thing about this is a clean foundation, and it is a drugstore foundation. That's great. That is hard to find. There are some really expensive clean foundations on the market, but it's not the easiest foundation in the world to work with. I think a lot of this is that I haven't yet found a completely silicone-free foundation that works for me. In fact, almost every foundation that is silicone-free has been difficult for me. This one is the best of all the silicone-free foundations that I've tried, so the fact that it's very affordable is also very nice for any of you who are looking for silicone-free foundations, but know that this guy never sets. You pretty much can't touch your face if you're wearing this, so, maybe some people are really good at not touching their face, but if you even slightly bump into it, it's all gonna come off. Now that said, I love this foundation because this one right here is an olive shade, and I've mixed in a little bit of this to almost every foundation that I wore up until the release of Smashbox, Urban Decay. Once those came out and I no longer needed to mix some olive in, I kind of put this one aside. But yeah, I used this a lot for the first portion of this year because something like this needed to exist. I needed an olive mixer, and it was that for me. So, again, this is one where I don't think it's a perfect foundation per se, but I think it's something that needed to exist. Formulated without silicone, formaldehyde, phthalates, mineral oil, parabens, or petroleum, and $16. So, if you're looking for that and you won't touch your face, it's worth trying. Or if you're looking for something that is an actual olive skin tone, try this one. Which shade is this? 33NL. Next on my list was also sent to me. This is the Almay My Best Light Foundation. As far as I understand, this is not a completely new product, but it is a new reformulated sometime around January. It's not a bad product again, but it's just not necessarily the best out there. It's another SPF 15 foundation, and I already expressed why that's not very exciting to me. It is a physical sunscreen, and it's an interesting effect. It goes on white, but then as you buff it into your skin, it matches your skin better. It wears nicely, but it's still, for it being such a light coverage foundation, it still looks kind of foundation-like to me. It's probably a lot because of the physical filters in here. Again, I think that brands should probably just leave SPF out of foundation. I know a lot of people like it, and I know it can be done well because Shiseido did it well. But if it's not done right, it just kind of makes things complicated. Oh, I bet this is somebody's absolute favorite foundation, and I'm ranking it low. It is nice that it is lightweight. It's just not revolutionary enough to rank higher on my list. This was also sent to me. I had some hits and misses. So this is the Flesh Pure Flesh Foundation. I have this in a fails video if you want to see me struggle to apply this. And it's really a shame because this one is also a silicone-free foundation, and I think it's the closest I've ever come to really loving a silicone-free foundation. The reason it's ranking lower than that Pacifica one is because if anything goes wrong in the application process of this, it is impossible to fix. That said, if you've got great skin, if you rarely run into any kinds of problems applying your foundation, this could be an absolute favorite for you because it is gorgeous on the skin. It's a gorgeous light medium coverage. Flesh is really good at covering all skin tones, all shades. But again, if something goes wrong, you can't fix it. You have to take everything off and start all over. And I wanted to make sure that this isn't just my personal experience. I went and read other reviews, and it really does seem to be this case. If this works for you, you're gonna love it. If it doesn't, you're gonna have a bad day. The second to last foundation, so sorry Ulta. I've liked so many of your foundations, but this one is not it. This is the Youthful Glow Foundation Serum Drops. We talked about serum-like foundations when we were talking about Uma. Uma did it well. Ulta, yeah, sweetie, this is not it. For a foundation that is so light coverage, how does it sink into lines the way that this one does? How does this one find pores and magnify them so much? I don't get it. It's just not a good formulation because, again, maybe that happens with some higher coverage products. That shouldn't happen with something that is this light in coverage. And it's so funny because I feel like all the claims on this product, on the bottle that I'm looking at right now, I kind of just disagree with every one of them. Light as air fluid texture, it's not that light. Buildable coverage, you do not want to build this one up. Luminous finish, all right, I'll give you that one. Blurring effect, no, it's like the opposite of blurring. I just think it's not a good product, honestly. But the worst foundation that I have tried all year is one that I no longer have because I returned it. And if you saw that video, you sure as heck know why I returned that darn foundation. Stila Souffle Whipped Nonsense. I don't remember what it was called. Something like souffle. Lingerie souffle? Oh, that was it. What does that even mean? What a bad foundation. This is one of those products where I saw all the bad reviews, and you have to know this about me. I'm pretty good at making foundation in particular work. I'm pretty good at it. I will step up to the challenge, so I figured, no, I can do it. I can make this work. Not this one. I have never had a foundation make my skin look so bad. It was just patches of, I'll link the video. I'll link it. Don't worry. You guys can laugh all you want because we are laughing together at how bad that experience was. Oh, it was one of few products where I would not go back in for a second try. Usually I will. Usually I'll give it a second chance. Not with that. Nope, I am not messing with that. The reviews were all correct. That is truly one of the worst foundations I've ever tried. I don't know what happened. They really tried to have this incredibly innovative product, a product where one shade matches a wide range, a very light texture. Oh yeah, that one was silicone-free too. Again, supporting my argument that silicone-free is really difficult. But wow, please let me know if that foundation has worked for any of you, because I want to believe that, it's not just me, but wow. That was a rough experience. So that is all I have for this video. Feel free to comment below. I welcome any differing opinions. I welcome any additional feedback. Did you try the Anastasia foundation? Did you try the Pat McGrath? Where do they rank in your opinion? If you guys like this video, make sure to give it a like, hit subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.